This is an English-only version of a talk given with Spanish interpretation by Skype. It's a little bit different from the original, but pretty close. The sun is now in Pisces. Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. And we began these talks when the sun was in Aries, the first sign. This means we've completed a full cycle with this talk. As you've probably noticed, these talks have not been at all consistent. Some are technical, some are practical, some are very broad, and others are very detailed. The reason for this irregularity is because I'm trying to figure out what is most important and what is suitable for this group and for me doing this kind of work. I've never done it before. As time has gone on, I have realized that there are basic principles of health and healing that must be maintained for us to continue in good health. These are very simple, practical things, and we should cover those even though they are very, I don't know what to say, very, very simplistic. We have to be healthy before we ourselves can be healers. Now these things are so fundamental that I have been placing emphasis on these fundamental things. Now this talk will continue this trend, but this will be the last one with this kind of emphasis. Our next session will be a question and answer session. And in that I prefer that the questions be about the material that we have covered in these talks, but I will try to answer any kind of question. I may not be able to answer all questions, but I will try with the ones that I know a little bit about. You may send the questions to Jorge Ray ahead of time if you would like there to be some preparation for your question, or you can ask them at the time of the meeting. All right. During the last month, Jorge has received several requests for information about death and dying. And we are supposed to be studying a Virgo topic with the sun in Pisces, but death and dying is not a Virgo topic. We'll do it anyway because it's an important thing. This will be a very short version. In recent works at home here, I've been giving talks on the topic of death and dying in a course on Rosicrucian mysticism that I offer here. The human life cycle, which is sometimes called the cycle of rebirth, has two special points. One of those two special points is in third heaven, and the other is at the point of death of the dense physical body. In third heaven, we get a glimpse of the divine plan, of the very big idea behind the evolutionary creation, the whole of it. In that moment, we are inspired. We are filled with the urge to participate in the creation. We want to give and experience in the creation. In that moment, we have the idea of a new life, a participatory life that is the fulfillment of that idea. Now, the idea of the new life is based on the idea of the entire creation. It is a microcosm, so to speak. Everything works according to the principle of analogy, as above, so below. After we have been filled or inspired with that idea, we set out to make it manifest. And we do that by creating a complex, concrete thought based on that idea. That concrete thought is called the life archetype, or sometimes just archetype. The archetype is not a passive, stationary thought. It is filled with the will to live that issues from the spirit that is inspired. It is filled with life from the life spirit. So the archetype is set spinning, so to speak. And the spinning and the will to live have a definite effect. Since the spirit is looking forward to the life ahead, the spinning seems to propel it forward. And the effect of forward spinning is to attract the spirit to matter and to attract matter to the spirit. Thus, the spinning archetype attracts all of the matter for all of our bodies, and it puts us very deeply into responsibilities. When the time is ripe and the bodies are ready, the spirit is born into its bodies, and the bodies are born or activated. The spinning, the forward-looking, does not end with birth. It continues throughout life. As children, we are looking forward to going to school. Later on, we look forward to being married and having our own children. And eventually, we look forward to having grandchildren. Now, there are many ways we look forward, and all of them bring us more deeply into matter, and even our physical bodies become more material. They become harder. The body of an infant is soft, and the bones are like rubber. In an older person, the body is hard, and the bones become brittle. At some point in life, we also begin to look backward. It is usually when we have children, but it happens even if we don't have children. Looking backward has the opposite effect from looking forward. Looking forward is incarnating, and looking backward is disincarnating. Max Heindel says that as we age and look backward in life, we begin to ripen and we become ready to leave the earth. And he likens it to the stone in the center of a plum being loose when the plum is ripe. Once we begin looking backward, the process or the activity of looking backward increases. At the same time, the looking forward decreases. One reason that the looking forward decreases is that there is less and less to look forward to, until eventually all we have to look forward to is death. However, the main reason for the slowing down of the forward-looking is that the will to live, which started the cycle, is beginning to run out. It becomes weaker, and eventually it does run out, and one's physical body dies. Now, this statement of the cycle is a generalized version. And as we know from watching so many lives around us, there are many variations of this cycle. But when the will to live has gone as far as it can, the archetype loses its attractive force. Death of the dense physical body starts the second half of the life cycle. With no looking forward from the will to live, the spirit lets go, and everything unwinds, everything spins backward. This unwinding or this unraveling we experience in purgatory, in first heaven and second heaven, before returning to third heaven, and the spirit which had the original creative idea. Now, these experiences, such as purgatory, are the processing of experiences of the looking forward part of the cycle. In this unwinding, we experience events from consequence backward to cause, instead of from cause to consequence. When we have seen it from both points of view, each point of view seems to cancel out the other, and the energy that is bound up in the experiences is released. And with this relief, the essence of the experience is extracted as soul material. The soul material feeds the spirit, and it is assimilated, and thus the will to live grows. It is through this soul essence that we learn from our experiences and get better. We improve. Obviously, our experience is of ultimate importance. We do not want to have lived our lives in vain. We do not want to have taken that glorious idea of the creation and do something with it and then lose everything we have done. Nothing of our lives is to be lost. Now, the cosmos accommodates to the importance of this, in that each of us naturally has a personal memory of nature. Every breath we take in carries the etheric essence of the atmosphere. The etheric essence is charged with our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and those of others, even things that we're not aware of at the time. All of these things are stored in our vital bodies, especially in the seed atom of the dense physical body located in the heart. All of us have photographic memories, living photographic memories. If we work very hard on perfecting ourselves in the exercise of retrospection, we can learn to access this memory during life. It isn't easy, especially when we have to face ourselves for our moral misdeeds, but it can be done. At death, accessing this memory is no problem. With the unwinding at death, the events of our lives pass before our consciousness. They pass before our inner eye, so to speak. The problem at death is paying attention to this unfolding panorama. If we pay attention, we get much more out of the life just finished, and it is not wasted. We can even control the speed of the unraveling by our attention and how much we give ourselves to the process. The more we pay attention, the slower the process is and the more complete it is. when we pay close attention to those images, the essence of them is built into the region of impressionability in the desire body. And there it becomes available to the spirit and to the higher vehicles for processing. The supreme importance of giving attention to the etheric panorama cannot be overstated. The quality of our future evolution is at stake. We may have lived very good lives and we may have done very important things, but if the essence of our experience has been lost, if it has not been processed, it will not help us. This is how we improve life by life. Nothing or as little as possible should be lost. Now, success depends on our ability to hold our attention on the panorama of etheric pictures. Death makes it easier to do this in some ways and harder in other ways. It is easier because the memory images are so intimate and they're so fascinating that we almost cannot take our eyes off of them. It is more difficult because we no longer have the dense physical body to anchor us or to shield us from the inner world influences which distract us by their intense activity. Even during life in our bodies, our ability to direct and hold our undivided attention on something is weak. Aware of this weakness, the Rosicrucian order has developed death procedures to give us the best chance for success. The sources that are likely to distract our attention from the panorama are both internal and external. Externally, the etheric vital body is still sympathetic to the dense physical body. The relationship between the two bodies is not as close as when the vital body interpenetrated the dense physical body, but there still is a resonant connection. When the silver cord has been broken, all that remains is a mild resonant connection. However, this connection is not direct, but it is a definite connection. For this reason, the dense physical body should be disturbed as little as possible for 3½ days, which is the maximum that a person can hold attention on the images in the ethers. This means no embalming, no post-mortem examinations, no autopsies, and no organ harvesting. None. Because all of these things greatly distract. It isn't pain like in the physical body, but there is a sensation that very much distracts the spirit that should be watching the pictures. Since the dense physical body deteriorates, especially in warm climates, the body should be kept cold so that decay is kept in abeyance. There is no sense perception in the dead, dense physical body, but it should be kept in a dark, quiet place anyway. When the dense physical body is suspended in the vital body, the dense physical body shields the vital body. And without that dense physical body to shield, we are much more sensitive to the desire world. If there is a chaotic environment, such as a war zone where there's all kinds of chaotic noise and destructive desires, that's one of the worst places for the body to be after death. A refrigerated morgue is usually a nice, quiet place. Family members are the people who can most easily make us angry or happy. They know us very well, and they have intimate connections with us, even inner world intimate connections. For this reason, family members must be very careful to not vent intense emotional expressions in this 3.5 day period, because from the inner worlds, those are great distractions. Now, doing these things gives the deceased the best chance to get the most out of the life just completed. Following this procedure has an extra benefit in the world. If a person does not harvest the experiences of life and they are lost, then that individual must die in a future rebirth as an infant or as a small child. It has to die at that age to be taken into third heaven and given special moral object lessons that are remedial for everything that was lost by not having the experience from the immediately previous life. So it follows from this that if we follow these procedures and give people the best chance to gain the experience from the life just finished, we will decrease infant mortality. And infant mortality is a source of great sorrow in the world, and it is prevalent throughout the world, as it must be, because we have so many procedures after death that are not like what we're speaking of here. After the 3.5 days, the body can be dealt with however one wants to, though cremation is probably the most sanitary, and it lessens the likelihood of the individual wanting to return to this world, being attracted to the matter that it once worked with. Both of my parents and my sister followed this procedure, and all of the other requirements, like memorial services and things like that, were done after the 3.5 days. Personally, I always carry 2 cards with me that are legally notarized. One of these cards tells what to do if I am seriously ill or if I have been in an accident. And the other tells what to do in case of my death. And they're both based on these principles. Samples of these cards were sent to the person who helps us from Chile, and they accompany the talks on the Rosicrucian website. All right, now we're ready to do the Virgo part. When the sun was in Capricorn, we noted that the opposite sign, Cancer, ruled the desire body. And we studied how attitudes in the desire body affect physical health. When the sun moved into Aquarius, we noted that the opposite sign, Leo, ruled the individual vital body. In that talk, we studied how important charging the vital energy from fresh milk or fresh raw vegetable juice was a very good thing for having good health. Now the sun is in Pisces, and the Rosicrucian Cosmoconception tells us that all of our humanity as one are ruled by Pisces. The opposite sign, Virgo, rules the dense physical body of the individual, especially through the 6th house. So we will look a very little bit at the 6th house and Virgo because we have very little time left. The 6th house tells us how something functions and how to maintain it. The maintenance of the physical body is called hygiene. Two of the most basic keywords of Virgo are service and purity. In the human body, the principles behind these keywords work together, and the bodies are the tools of the spirit in this work. They are used in the accomplishment of our part in the great evolutionary creation. Now, one part of that work is the spiritualization of matter. When we are metabolizing our food, we are working on the chemicals and transmuting the chemicals in the food. We take the minerals in our food into our bodies, and we share our higher consciousness with them. Gradually, very gradually, over thousands of years, the general consciousness of the mineral kingdom is raised up in this way, which isn't the only way, but it's most relevant to what we're talking about. Gradually, over thousands of years, our bodies become finer and more spiritualized and more flexible. That is the way the principle of service works. When we serve others like we serve the minerals, we ourselves are served. Now, in the metabolic activity, especially if we are physically active, we produce waste because new things are passing into the body and things also have to pass out of the body. That's what wasting is. The physical body works very hard to cleanse itself from the waste which would clog it or suffocate it and make it less efficient if it were not cleansed. There are several ways that the body cleanses itself. For example, a lot of poisonous carbon dioxide is expelled as we breathe out. Cell waste is removed through the bowel. Protein and other large cell waste is expelled through the kidneys and the urine. Chemicals are taken out of the body or handled by the liver. Waste from the flesh is in part removed by lymph and by sweating. Each of these activities can be helped with proper hygiene. And astrology can help us to have that better hygiene. For example, if we have Saturn or some other planet afflicted in Gemini, the ability to expel carbon dioxide is diminished. The leaves and stems of plants make breathing easier, and healthy exercises help us to improve and maintain our lungs. Scorpio, as we saw, rules the colon, and undigestible roughage, such as in fiber food, like eating raw, fresh, green leafy vegetables, stimulates the peristalsis and keeps everything moving and helps the whole process of elimination. If we have afflictions in Libra, drinking healthy amounts of pure distilled water flushes the kidneys and increases their efficiency. If we sweat, we plug the pores of our skin, and this has a choking effect, so regular bathing helps us enormously. I prefer showers instead of bathing in a tub, because in a tub too much life ether is drawn out of the vital body, or very little is drawn out of the vital body in a shower. For me, this is very necessary, because if I am doing hard physical work as I do in the garden, I may need to shower 3 times a day just to feel right. Hygiene helps even when elimination is not involved. One excellent example vindicates Max Heindel. Max Heindel taught that the crosses that form the attributes of the zodiac, the cardinal signs, the fixed signs, and the common signs, that any one of these crosses, when one member is activated, every other member of that cross is also activated. A very good example is Taurus, which is a fixed sign, along with Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Taurus rules the teeth. Now, there have been several major scientific studies that show that if we do not take proper care of our teeth, we are much more likely to heart attacks. Leo is square to Taurus, which rules the teeth. So we can see from this that little things that we can and should do every day are very important for living as well as we can and preventing conditions that could become illnesses if we didn't have proper hygiene. Now let's very briefly look at another thing having to do with Mercury and Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury represents the concrete mind. The concrete mind is an organ of tone, of pitch. Every thought has its own tone. It has its own frequency. This is true in large and in small. Thus we know that each physical body has a keynote for the whole body. And within the body, each organ has its own keynote. From this we can see that the dense physical body is something like a musical scale. Now, Max Heindel tells us many times over that the state of mind is extremely important to health and healing. He told us if a patient had a bad mental attitude, healing is very difficult to accomplish. He even found that from reading The Memory of Nature, that if an individual trained his or her mind to lie and to frequently be untrue, in the next rebirth that individual would have many illnesses and many physical conditions that were not good due to untrue thinking. So when that archetype was built in second heaven after the inspiration, it was not a true archetype because the mind had been trained to lie and to be untruthful. The mind is very important because everything that comes manifest in the concrete worlds comes through the mind first. The Bible tells us, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, Virgo is a sign of precision. It likes things to be exact. Thus, with the purity of Virgo, the ideal is an ideal of what musicians call perfect pitch. There are 2 ways a pitch or tone can be imperfect, that is, not perfect. If a pitch is a little too high, we say it is sharp. If a pitch is a little too low, we say it is flat. Then, since the body and every organ in the body has a keynote, there are 2 ways that the body or that the organs can get out of tune and function improperly. If the keynote of an organ is sharp, we say that organ is hyperactive. If the keynote of an organ is flat, we say it is hypoactive. Either of these conditions can put the entire body out of tune and cause other imbalances. Sometimes the imbalance is just in a few small clusters of cells, and it's enough to throw off the tone of the entire body. Now, this is an extremely large topic, and it's so large that it is worthy of several lifetimes of study. But so what we are saying is very, very little. Applying this principle, one way of healing is through tone in music, much as David did in the Bible. Musical therapy used to be performed at our Rosicrucian headquarters at Mount Ecclesia. But when those who knew what they were doing passed on, there was no one that knew how to do it, and it is no longer practiced there because it is very dangerous and harmful. Max Heindel tells us that the biblical Christ used to project healing pitches from himself, and he healed using tone. Now, with great caution, we can experiment with tone for health and for spiritual awakening. That is what initiation is all about. The keys to initiation, which are the keys to the kingdom, are musical keys. Now, Max Heindel gives a simple way of doing that, but it still requires a lot of care and study and some definite knowledge. He tells us that we must study the horoscope of the patient to find out the significant location of hypo or hyperactivity. Very often, hyperactivity is a result of Mars or Uranus or Mercury, where hypoactivity is often a result of Saturn or Pluto or Venus. Max Heindel states very emphatically that when we have located the organ that is flat or the organ that is sharp, we find the right herb to stimulate or to depress the organ so that balance can be restored to the body. Of course, the herb has to be harmonious with the ascendant of the patient, and it has to be harmonious with the organ in question. This is the way most medicine is accomplished. Even if we go to the regular doctors, they do the same thing. They either stimulate or suppress. Unfortunately, their medicine is harsh. It's made from unnatural chemicals that our bodies have not evolved in harmony with. And they don't have astrology, and so very often one imbalance produces another, and those other secondary imbalances are called side effects. Now, this is a very big topic, and we have run out of time. It is something that we will return to at some time in the future. For now, this is all we have to offer, and request that you get your questions ready so that we can have a good time with questions and answers the next time we meet. Thank you very much.